After the G2 versus XL game, I saw a lot of comments on Reddit saying that the freeze that happened this game was actually bad by Camille, so I wanted to go over the 5 minutes where the freeze happened and try to understand if it's actually good or not, and give some perspective, or at least my perspective on it. So some takeaways before the freeze even starts, or stuff to consider. So right now Jax is really ahead. He has 1.1k gold lead. It's up there on the left. If you know how this matchup goes, you know that Jax can't really get touched by Camille. Camille needs to avoid as much skirmish or like interaction with Jax as possible in a situation like this. Even if Jax is even, he kinda wins anyways, but when he's ahead it's really oppressive. So what Camille wants to do in this situation is try to avoid Jax as much as possible and try not to overextend for farm, because she actually is really useless in a situation like this. She can't really skirmish, she can't 2v2, she can't go out of her way and try to make picks because she's too behind, so she would just give too much freedom to Jax if she does that. So in this situation, Camille just wants to farm as safe as possible, and I think that's really important to consider when talking about a freeze. So Camille is freezing right now, which is completely fine. As I said, she really doesn't want to fight. She doesn't want to do anything outside of farming and getting EXP and items. So, and now Jax ends up TPing top, and you gotta ask yourself, Camille has no TP in this situation, so she only has one option. She can either, or well, she has two options. She can either keep the freeze, or she can shove and try to get to the wave or to the turret. Now the thing with the turret is that there's no plates to be taken, because by the time she gets there it will be past 14 minutes, so she can't take plates. If she pushes, she's not only breaking the freeze, but she's also putting herself in a bad position because she's overextending, so that's bad. So, and then the other thing is that she can't wave clear properly because she's Camille and she doesn't have Tiamat. So at this point you gotta understand that she actually doesn't have a better option than freezing. She can't contest topside because she doesn't have TP. If she pushes, she doesn't really get anything out of it, so keeping the freeze is completely fine. TF ends up wasting flash, or spending flash because he was overextended, but it's completely fine, doesn't really matter. So now Caitlyn ends up taking the turret top. She's taking it right now, and Kryze keeps freezing. And a lot of people on the Reddit comments were saying that by freezing you're giving up pressure, and sometimes that's true, but in this game in specific it's actually not true, because Camille is really behind, so she can't apply pressure. Like, it's just not possible for her to do it. She doesn't have items, she doesn't have damage. Her ultimate can kind of apply pressure, but you rely on your teammates, and they're not that far ahead to force stuff. And if Jax joins the fight, is so strong that it's really likely that you're just going to lose. So, and the other thing is that you're not really at your power spikes yet. So Ezreal is on Muramana Shin, and TF is on Rod of Ages 3 stacks and Shin too. So usually you want to wait for 2 items with this comp. You want to wait for the Trinity Force like Tiamat or Trinity Force Boots plus Vamp Scepter or Aegis of Legion, something like that. So Camille is kinda tanky and still does okay damage. So you're not really at the point where you want to fight with this team composition, so there's really no reason to not freeze in a scenario like this, especially when you can't really stop what G2 is trying to accomplish. So yeah, Perks ends up getting the top lane turret. It couldn't really be avoided, regardless of the freeze. So the freeze is completely fine. Next thing that happens is the TF is pushing top right now, and he ends up overextending. And now this is where it gets kind of interesting, because I think this is the only scenario where you could actually argue that keeping the freeze is bad. So Kryze still has the TP, or he just got the TP in this situation, and TF ulted, and he has roughly a second and a half to think and look at the minimap, and he can see that no one is near his lane. So what you could do in this situation, because this wave is about a minion and a half, or a wave and a half of minions, what you could do is you could TP with Camille, and then because Jax just used his Z, you can actually threaten a kill on him. So if you get a kill on Jax, it's really good because you deny a wave and a half, which is probably more or less the same that the freeze is denying, and you get the turret. And maybe you deny even further if you push the next wave, depending on how G2 reacts to the freeze or to the play on top side. So I think this is the only situation where you could actually argue that breaking the freeze is good. And the best part is that you actually don't need to break the freeze, depending on. Obviously we can't see the wave on bot side, but assuming that it's still freezing at this moment, you could just TP with Camille, and the freeze is gonna keep going, and you get the kill on Jax, or at least you threaten a kill on Jax, which very likely would turn into a kill. But XL ends up not going for that kind of play, and they just run away. Which is, I don't think it's the winning line, but it's acceptable. Then outside of that, not much happens. The freeze ends up being broken by itself, or Camille messed it up, I'm not totally sure. And then Zoe goes and she pushes another wave, so I've been counting the waves, and Camille denied around 3.5 waves of minions on the first set of freeze. So that's, I think, it's on average about 136 gold, so 500 or so, a little bit more. And then Zoe goes and she just insta-shoves the wave, and Camille goes to freeze again. Now, before the Drake is 50 seconds for Drake. That's something I forgot to mention, but yeah, she started freezing as the Drake died, so she had 5 minutes of nothing happening on the map. You could argue that the Rift Herald is an objective, but it's not really worth getting because it's already past 14 minutes and there's no plates to get on the map, so it's kind of whatever, even if G2 ends up taking it. So the other thing that happens is you get mid turret, but even if Camille isn't freezing, they can't really stop this. So I mean, it's not even, yeah, Camille can't really do anything. It's not because of the freeze, it's just because of how the champions interact. Yeah, and the freeze ends up, yeah, and the freeze stops at 17 minutes. So during all of this, Camille denied 3.5 waves of minions. You could argue it's 4, but I'm pretty sure it's 3.5. And then the caps ends up insta pushing the wave, and then Camille denies 2 more waves of minions. So if we go to the wiki, between 0 minutes and 15 minutes, every wave is 125 gold on average, and then 15 minutes until 17, it's 147. So what I ended up doing is going into the calculator, 125 plus 147, then divided by 2. This doesn't give you an exact number, obviously, but it gives you an okay idea. And then you just go times 5.5, and it's more or less how much gold was denied by the freeze. So it's around this. If you argue it's 4 waves or 6 waves, it's 800 something. So with this, Camille not only denied 750 gold, which is pretty big, she also denied almost 6 waves of EXP, which is more or less 1 level. So if you were to say that all of this went to Jax, it'd be level 12 right now, but instead is same level as Camille. He's probably still somewhat ahead, but not to the same extent that it would generally be. So yeah, I hope this video helped people try to understand like why the freeze is actually completely fine. Camille isn't really a champion that can do much in a situation like this, so denying gold is probably the best thing you can do. And you should, like, when you're ahead, you should actively look for ways to deny gold, and some people do it. So I don't know, I don't understand how people don't think that when you're behind, denying gold is a bad thing, like, or is a good thing in this case. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.